Salvete omnes. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to our continuing coverage of Caesar. We're working our way through Book 6 right now of his Gallic Wars. We just started talking about the Druids in the last video. We're going to continue talking a little bit about the Druids and then talk a little bit about the Knights. You can see section 15 on the screen is the Knights. And that's it, right? They get like 50 words, maybe. With that, let's go ahead and dive in. Druides a bello abessa consuerunt, neque tributa una cum reliquis pendunt, militiae vocationem omniumque rerum habent immunitatem. So, we learned about the Druids, kind of the heads of religion and law, to some extent, for the Gauls. We also find out that the Druids are accustomed, they're accustomed to being absent from war. They don't engage in war. Nor do they weigh out tribute, do they weigh out taxes or pay taxes together with the others. I presume the other Gauls. So, if you're a Druid, you don't have to go to war. Right? Or at least you're away from the battlefield, and you don't have to pay the same sort of tax rate that the others do. Perhaps no taxes at all. I'm not quite sure what the una cum reliquis implies here, right? They are not accustomed to weighing out taxes together with the others, so do they still pay taxes but less? Do they pay taxes but more? Or do they just not weigh, or they not pay taxes at all? Because I feel like you could get rid of una cum reliquis and just they're not accustomed and they don't pay taxes. Period. But it's like this is like together with the others, so I'm not quite sure what that's implying. They also have a vacation of the military. So again, they don't have to do, which kind of repeats what we have here, right? They're accustomed to being away from war. They have vacation of the military, so they don't have to fight, and they have immunity of all things. So they are the law, or above the law, however you want to view it. So, nice to be a Druid. Tantis excitati Preemies et suus sponte multi indisciplinum conveniunt et a parentibus propinquisque mittuntur. So, literally excited, right? Urged on by such rewards, such benefits, perhaps, and by their own volition. Many kind of, again, I'm going to kind of go with like flock for convenient. We had it in section 13, or we had concurrent up here in 13. They flock to them. Convenient, I think, kind of the similar idea, right? They meet, or they come to this discipline, to this study, and they are sent, mittuntur, they are sent by parents and by those close to them, the propinquis, usually relatives. So parents, your very close relatives, propinquis, maybe a grandparent or an aunt or an uncle or something like that. So, some of them want to be of their own volition. They want to be a Druid. Some just want the benefits of being a Druid. Some of them are sent by their parents or relatives because that's how you get a better life. All right. Magnum ibi numerum versum ediscere decuntur. Nice short sentences for Caesar. Maybe we'll do two at a time. Itaqua annos non nulli vicenos in disciplina permanent. So I'll do a couple of short sentences together here. There, they are said, decuntur, to learn, to like thoroughly learn, they're said to learn a great number of verses. Versum is genitive plural of the fourth declension. So they learn a great number of verses of, you can almost translate it if you wanted like a modern idea, like scriptures or something like that. So it's not necessarily poems per se, but definitely some sort of writings. And so several of them, non-newly, not none of them, right? Several of them remain in this discipline, remain in this study for wikinos annos, for like, I think that's 20 years. So it's a lot to learn. So you're going to be there for some time. But hey, y'all go to school for like 20 years, so that's the difference. Alright. Nequa fas as existimant ea literis mandare, cum in reliquis fere rebus publicis prioratisque rationibus Graecis literis utantor. And they don't, right? They do not believe, they do not estimate, not exist. It looks like it should be exist, but it's actually more, this is the base. They do not estimate, or they do not believe that indirect statement that it is appropriate to mandare can mean to command, but it can also mean to like to entrust. And I think entrust is a better way to translate mandare just in general. They do not entrust these things, these verses and whatnot. They do not believe that it's appropriate to entrust them to letters. So they don't believe it's appropriate to write them down. Cum. Although, for cum here, we'll go with when, and we'll figure it out. When, in almost the remaining matters, I think Farah here's like in almost the remaining matters, as in like in almost all other matters. I believe that's kind of what the Farah is doing there. They use Greek letters in public or for public and private accounts. So, they do write some stuff down. Rationibus oftentimes used for like literally like accounting, like where you would use ratios, right, with numbers. So I'll hesitate to say banking, but any sort of kind of like monetary stuff, and maybe other things. So I think it's best as although. They don't think it's right to entrust the religious stuff to writing it down, although they do use Greek letters for the rest of the stuff, or almost the rest of the stuff, both public and private. I think here, Greek letters, the idea, they don't use, I don't think it's they use the Greek words, they use the Greek alphabet, interestingly. But not the Greek language. So, which is interesting because if you remember back in in book 5, Caesar writes this letter in Greek letters to Cicero, right, saying that he's on his way, so that they couldn't figure it out. This implies that they can read Greek. And I talked about, is that a case of he writes it in Greek letters, but with Roman words? Or what? You would think that if he... I don't know. I just feel that... I'd like to know why Caesar decided to do that and exactly what that meant, because it seems that they can understand Greek, and it seems they can understand Latin, right? Because he would have just written it in Latin if they don't know Latin. So, I don't know. There we go. Alright. Id mihi duabus de calcis instituus videntur, quod neque in vulgum disciplinam efferri velent, neque eos qui discunt literis confisos minus memoriae studera, quod ferre plerisque accidit, ut praesidio literarum diligentiam in perdiscendo ac memoriam remittant. Alright. A great passage for teachers and students. I think they seem interesting case of mihi here to me. So Caesar, or the author in this case, which of course is Caesar, is providing his assumptions for why they don't write down the religious stuff, right? So to me, they seem to have instituted this rule, duabus de casis, for two reasons. Because they don't want this discipline, this study, this religious stuff to be carried into the common people, into the commoners. So this is in thinking what I know of modern religion, right? It's kind of the Martin Luther idea, right? Before Martin Luther, the church was like, no, we know all of the stuff. We're the only ones who can read and see the scriptures. And then Martin Luther was like, no, it should be for the commoners. And the Gauls are kind of pre-Luther, right? They don't want the religious matters to be brought into the commoners. So if you write this down, those could be captured, those could be stolen, those could be disseminated to the commoners, and then everybody learns about these religious rules and it loses its mysticism, perhaps. So that's one thing that Caesar thinks, right? They seem to me to have done this for two reasons. Because, that reason, and let's see, those who study, I'm trying to think of how I want to put this, and so, because Eos here is, Eos here, the object of Welland, because they don't want them to be carried into the crowd, and they don't want those who are studying to study, like, less with their memory, to study less of their memory, having studied less for their memory, having trusted letters, I guess, yeah, those who study, having trusted or having put their faith in the letters, study, less for their memory. I think Confucius kind of governing both of these, right? Having trusted their letters and having trusted their memory less, they study. So they don't want those who are studying these religious verses, right? These Versum, they don't want them to trust their memory less and instead trust the letters. So again, it's talking about teachers, right? No, you have to memorize this because it's important for you to remember things as opposed to trusting letters too much. Because, and this is not the same, this is not one of the two, I don't think this is one of the two reasons. The two reasons are they don't want to go into the crowd and they want the people to study harder, right? Trust your memory, not the letters. And they want people to trust, the Gauls or the Druids want people that are studying to trust their memory more because it happens for pretty much everybody. Fere plerisque, almost for several people. Pleris means, I think, pleris is more than half. Fere means almost, so almost more than half. Which is still a good chunk, right? I mean, even if it's like right at half. Anyway, it happens for most people that, result clause, that because of ablative of cause, because of the protection of letters, praesidio, because of the protection of letters, they remit, they lose their diligence in studying, thoroughly studying, right? Per discenda. They lose their diligence in studying and their memory in studying. So, yeah, which, I mean, you'll hear teachers complain about all the time. I still kind of lament how much people rely upon, I lament how much I rely upon my phone, right? When I was younger, back in my day, I used to know a whole lot of phone numbers, right? I knew my house phone number. I knew like my friends' phone numbers. I knew my grandparents' phone numbers. I knew all these different phone numbers. And now I know like 3. Like, I don't know hardly any phone numbers anymore because it's all saved in my phone, right? I have kind of sent away my memory. Um, and likewise, the diligence of studying, right? If I know that I can just look up any word by clicking on it, especially now with modern technology, then what's the point of learning what vocab means if I can just click on it and it tells me what it says? So, yeah, this section hits hard for me, both as a student and as a teacher. All right. In Preemies, hoc volunt persuadere, non inter ira animas, sed ab alis postmortem transira ad alios, atqua hoc maxime ad virtutem excitare putant metu mortis neglecto. So, among the first things in Preemies, so we talk about kind of like the study it takes to become a druid, and then, hey, so what do they teach those druids? We're going to get a little bit of the stuff that they teach, so a little bit of the kind of religious studies for the Gauls. So among the first things they want to persuade, this, that, and you get indirect statement here, and I would like perhaps a colon. Oftentimes this particular text will use a colon when it's about to introduce indirect statement, but not quite grammatically connected. But yeah, they want to persuade this, that souls do not die. Indirect statement, right? Accusative and infinitive. They want to persuade that souls do not die, but souls cross over from some people after death to others. So reincarnation, right? The souls don't die, but souls cross from one form to another form. He uses the plural here, right? We might use the singular. Souls cross from one form to another. He's saying they cross from some forms to other forms. And they think that I want to. They think that, I guess, those who are studying, they think that they are excited by this very greatly to courage, or the most to courage. They are kind of roused to courage the most by this. Ablative absolute, kind of giving you a cause with the fear of death, metu mortis, with the fear of death neglected. So, if you think that your soul is going to reincarnate after you die, then you're going to fight very fiercely, very courageously, because if you win, awesome, you win and you get to keep on going. But if you die, hey, you'll be back shortly, right? You'll just respawn and everything will be fine. So, that is why, it's one of the first things they want to persuade. Yeah, it makes sense to me. You want these people to be fierce fighters? Well, tell them that they won't die. Multa praeterea de sideribus atque eorum motu, de mundi ac terrarum magnitudine, de rerum natura, de deorum immortalium, vi ac potestate disputant, et juventuti tradunt. All right. Besides, or kind of like in addition to, alongside these things, I guess, they discuss, I would say for disputant, I don't think it's, dispute works, but dispute makes it sound more like an argument as opposed to a discussion, and I feel like it's probably a little bit more debate, discussion sort of thing, philosophy. But they discuss many things all day, many things about all of these different things, right? Many things about the stars and their motion. All right, so they discuss many things about the stars and the motion of the stars, about the size of the world and the lands. So I think mundi here referring to the globe, and then terrarum referring to the land masses on said globe. They also discuss many things about the nature of things, and many things about the power, the force and the power of the immortal gods. We and potestate, again, Caesar doing somewhat synonymous nouns here. One perhaps abstract, the other more concrete. I think we is probably along the lines of physical power. Oftentimes being translated as violence or force. So I think this is like the kind of like the actual physical manifestation of the god's powers, whereas potestate is more the kind of abstract idea of the god's powers, perhaps the ability to control crops or time or something, maybe. So they discuss these things and they hand them down. They hand these discussions down to the youth. So it's cool, right? Again, all talking about the Druids and kind of the things that they do and teach. All right. Section 15. Oh, look at that. We're going to move on from the Druids at least for a little bit. Alterum genus est equitum. He cum est usus ad quale quod bellum incidit, quod ferreante Caesaris adventum quotanis accider solebant, uti aut ipsi ignores inferent, aut in latas propulsarent, omnes in bello versantur, adque orum ut quisque est genera copiis qua amplissimus, ita plurimus circumseam bactos clientes qua habent. I might as well just do it all as one sentence. Hanc unam gratiam potentiamque noverunt. So the other type, right? The one type is of Druids. The other type is of the Equites. Eques, or the Equites, is the highest social rank in Rome. This is the 1%, right? These are your billionaires, essentially. But also, they can afford a horse, is the idea, and so they kind of are your main fighters. And think about how whenever somebody, some sort of war hero, at least tanks, is armed with the best statues, have people on horses, right? And that's all the way back to this, ancient Rome, and before that, right? If you can have a horse, that's awesome. And so you can translate it as knights, as the Equites. You'll hear me use the Latin word just Equites. Knights, cavalry, horsemen, whatever. So this is we'll go with knights. These men, these knights, I think cum here I'll translate as probably whenever, because it is followed by an indicative, right? So whenever there is, I'll say a need, usus. Whenever there is a need, and whenever whenever something falls to war, whenever some sort of war happens, which was accustomed to happening, I think Fere is going with Quotanis here. It happened almost every year before Caesar's arrival. So these Gauls just love to fight, and they're fighting practically every year until Caesar got there, and he calmed them all down. Uti. Uti here is ut, with a subjunctive, so I guess purpose, explaining incidunt, why some sort of war happens. So whenever there's a need and some sort of war happens, for the purpose of either bringing injustices themselves, or inflicting injustices themselves, or repelling injustices having been brought against them. So inurias here, the object of inferent, also technically the object of propulsarent, but ilatas, the participle, describing inurias. So they are inflicting injustices, or they are repelling inflicted injustices. let's see, long sentence, right? These men, whenever all of this happens, these men all are, I mean, you could say they are versed in war, they are engaged in war, they are involved, maybe. They are involved in war. And, let's see, of them, I think you get ut and ita here kind of acting as correlatives. As each one, as each of them is very, perhaps well off amplicimus. They're very ample, right? They're very well off in kind of in their type and in their resources. I think as much as each one is kind of filled by their type and their resources, in this way, kind of in the same amount, they have around them several squires, almost squires and clients, pages and clients. Ambactos, not actually a term that I'm super familiar with. It's one of these words where I know it here. I understand what it's describing here, but I would not recognize it outside of this particular passage. So vassals, that's a good term, vassal. So they have vassals and clients. What's the difference between an ambactos and a clientes? I mean, they're all kind of the same, right? They have subordinates. So however awesome you are as a knight, you're going to have an entourage around you that matches that. You know, as each one is very well resourced in such a way, they have all these clients. They know, right? The knights know, or experience. They know this one grace, gratem, this one grace and power. So this is the reason to be a knight. You just want to be, just kind of, you want to look like you're a popular kid, sort of thing. All right, you've got all of these vassals around you. Hey, look how cool I am. The Druids have like all of the like kind of legal power, and the knights have all of the military power. And then the poor plebs, as we learned in 13, just do what they're told. All right. All right, that does it for today's, or for this video. So we'll stop there. We'll learn a little bit, as we can see in 16. Now we'll talk about kind of Gaul as a whole, and we actually get to talk a little bit about the religious affairs, which to some extent has to do with the Druids, but less about what it takes to be a Druid and more about what the Druids teach as far as religion goes. And so that's actually quite interesting. I think something to look forward to. But that will do it for this video. So, as always, if you have anything to suggest, anything to ask, feel free to comment down below. Hit me up in class or email, and I'll answer this as much as I can. Have a great rest of your day, and I will see you in the next one. Later.